If you've ever printed with TPU, then you'll know just how tough this filament really is. You can crush it, smash it, drill it, and it just shrugs it off. It's so tough, in fact, that TPU has become the de facto armor for 3D printed combat robots because it's capable of soaking up massive hits as robots ricochet around the arena. But what if I told you there was another flexible filament, one that results in lighter parts and has much more bounce, one that some people are now calling Super TPU, but it's not TPU at all. This is PEBA, and it got me thinking, can this new wonder filament handle the abuse that TPU has become so famous for? To find out, I built this, a tiny combat robot with a PEBA frame and nasty horizontal spinner, and I put it to the test against some of the most destructive robots of its class. Let's get started. This is Vortex, my take on the concept of a twack spinner, popularized by Sean and his robot Thagomizer. The idea is simple, but genius. Instead of building a large horizontal spinner like Tombstone and trying to drive it into your opponents directly, often where their armor is the thickest, the Thagomizer approach is to drive an armored wedge towards your opponent instead, which soaks up impacts and controls the other robot, before then spinning up a small but fast blade at the end of a long tail at the rear and rapidly spinning on the spot to smash it into the side of the other robot, twacking them with a huge amount of kinetic energy and often resulting in hugely damaging impacts. Sean has an in-depth video discussing the key geometry and design fundamentals of this concept, and I highly recommend checking it out if you're interested, linked in the description below. I really like my horizontal spinners, so I thought it'd be fun to try building one, but for the 150 gram ant weight class we'd run here in Australia. You've seen them here before on the channel. These bots are absolutely tiny, but they have experienced what I can only describe as an accelerated arms race over the past 2 years in this country. Despite their tiny size and weight, Australian ant weights hit hard with custom weapon motors, ultra-refined chassis with modular armor pieces, and hardened steel weapon blades made from durable mining steels like Hardox. They may be tiny, but they are serious business. As such, it's not really viable anymore to just bolt a blade to a small brushless motor and expect it to last more than a few fights, especially not for horizontal spinners, because all it takes is one good hit from a vertical spinner and the entire motor can will depart its mortal coil. You can kind of get away with it by supporting the motor shaft with a bearing like I did on Death Ray, but I really think the best approach is to decouple the motor entirely and belt drive the weapon system instead. So this is what I came up with. It uses one of the leftover discs from my mini Death Roll build, which is a fairly large but quite light titanium single-tooth blade, and 2 large bearings are integrated into the pulley and hub, which rest on a dead shaft, aka one that doesn't rotate. This is actually made from a tapped aluminium standoff, and these standoffs are an excellent way of assembling robots because they create this kind of stacked sandwich approach where the parts can't pull out in big impacts. The threads would literally have to fail. From here, I got to work figuring out the PEBA chassis. But why choose PEBA over TPU? Well, both are durable, flexible materials, but PEBA, which stands for polyether block amide, has some unique properties when compared to TPU that just might make it more attractive for use in combat robotics. For a start, its density is one of the lowest out of all 3D printing filaments, coming in at 1 gram per centimeter cubed compared to 1.2 grams per centimeter cubed or higher for TPU. That's a 20% reduction in weight for the same part printed at the same settings, and very handy for weight critical applications. It's also far bouncier than TPU, with incredibly high rebound and energy return. This has made it a popular choice for the soles of high-end running shoes, and it's why PEBA became the #1 choice for 3D printed balls. They really do bounce incredibly well. It's an interesting difference compared to the impact absorbing properties of TPU, and I'm honestly unsure how this difference will affect its ability to handle impacts. If you haven't used PEBA before, getting the right print settings is really important for success. Like TPU, it absorbs moisture from the air rapidly, so it needs to be dried really, really well to avoid that moisture ruining the print. But unlike TPU, it likes things fairly hot. For example, you need the print bed at 70 degrees Celsius or so, and a brim helps stick the parts down without warping, which it definitely can do. And I printed it with a nozzle temperature of 250 degrees Celsius, which is bumped up a little bit from the default to improve intra-layer bonding. Surprisingly, I found that the supports come away fairly easily, and the printed parts were really clean, and they only needed minimal cleanup. In addition to PEBA, Soraya have a foaming TPU, which they call TPU Air, and I've conducted various experiments in previous videos where I discovered that they actually make excellent custom foam wheels. These wheels have more than enough traction to move the robot around, but I also wanted to test how durable these wheels could be, so I designed these custom ones for Vortex, and I gave them this huge flange to soak up impacts. Obviously, foam on its own isn't going to secure to a motor shaft, so I employed the multi-material capabilities on the Snapmaker U1, which combines Soraya 64D TPU, which is a very hard TPU, with the very soft and foamy TPU Air, which was extruded at 270 degrees Celsius, which results in a roughly 66A shore hardness, which is very soft. The higher print temperature you use, the softer the foam becomes, which is pretty neat in itself. Something I've been experimenting with lately is the concept of combining dissimilar materials using a tool changer setup in a way where they just don't separate after printing. And although these are both TPUs, I wanted them to have some kind of mechanical keying between each body to really lock them together. This is robot combat after all. Beam interlocking is one approach you can use, and it's built right into your slicer, in this case Orca slicer, but it's really not suitable for a circular object like this, especially one that's so small. So instead, I modeled these additional details into the hub. It's a little bit like a circular dovetail with these additional rings every few layers to really jam each material together, and it seemed to work pretty well. Something I haven't fully solved, however, is the fact that tool changes still result in a little zit on the surface of the wheel, and this is despite the fact that the U1 changes tool heads really, really fast. The foam TPU just gushes out of the nozzle between travel moves, and it means that each batch results in just one wheel looking really terrible where that particular layer started and stopped, and it just ruins the outside surface. I've tried a few different approaches to try and solve it so far with very limited success, like a draft shield instead of a prime tower. But for now, I just print one extra wheel, and it's a crappy looking spare if I really need it. Sorry, not sorry. If you're interested in trying any of these filaments, then you'll be happy to know that Soraya have excellent profiles on their website for a range of popular printers, and that these are just a small sample of the high performance materials they have on offer. Soraya is the sponsor of this video, and they're well known for their high performance resins, but you might not have been aware of how many high performance filaments they now have on offer. You've got their Fiber Heart series with materials built for strength, rigidity, and heat resistance. These are materials like PPA with carbon fiber or glass fiber fill, and they have their Flex series as well, which includes TPU, PEBA in a range of shore hardnesses, TPU Air, PEBA Air, and their most recent addition, TPU GF, glass-filled TPU. Yep, that's right. I've only just gotten my hands on this material and started experimenting, but it's fascinating. The addition of glass fibers to a TPU sounds strange, but it results in a tough, semi-flex material that can be used to print huge parts with zero warping, which is an issue with the higher diameter normal TPUs. It's a really interesting material, and you'll definitely be seeing more of this stuff in future videos here on the channel. You can explore the full range of Soraya materials on their website or over on Amazon, and you can find purchase links in the video description below. I really want to thank Soraya for sponsoring this video. I reached out to them after I had such great results with their filaments in my previous projects, and they were more than keen to support the channel. But now, back to the build, and it's time to assemble this thing. The original plan was to use PCBs for top and bottom plates as a kind of poor man's carbon fiber, but delays meant I had to get some polycarbonate plates cut locally instead with the help from James over at Broken Link Robotics. So A big thanks to him. Everything went together fairly easily, but the weapon stack was proving to be fiddly. Again, these machines are so tiny, and I hoped that a printed pulley and hub would be precise enough at this scale, but it was flexing quite a bit as the screws were tightened, and it wasn't all that straight on the shaft. Still, I persisted with the fiddly assembly, and I got the whole thing assembled, creating myself a custom belt using a very soft TPU and melting the ends together with a lighter. It's quite the fiddly process, and I burnt my fingers more than once attempting it, but it actually creates a very durable custom O-belt with the welded area being just as strong as the rest of it. All I had to do was stretch it into position and secure the dead shaft with 2 small screws, and we're ready for a test. Okay, cool. It actually seems to work. Without the weapon blade attached, of course, for safety reasons. And with 1 day out from the event, because I was waiting for parts, I was pretty stressed, but fairly confident. Well, you know how these things go. It's never that easy. With all the parts added and everything on the scales, it was badly overweight. Like, very badly, 10 grams or more, which is heaps for this tiny weight class. It turns out that the 3mm polycarbonate is quite a bit heavier than the 1.6mm Garolite PCB that I had planned for, and all that extra complexity to decouple a motor from the blade just blew the rest of the weight budget out of the water. PEBA is less dense than TPU, so that did save things somewhat, but there simply was not enough time to redesign the whole robot to get it underweight. So instead, I kludged this together. Unlike the beautifully CNC'd top plate that James made for me, this one was smashed out on my bandsaw by hand in 5 minutes. And it mounts a motor directly using a small but chunky metal weapon blade. This goes against everything I said earlier about trying to keep the motor alive. Yes, I'm fully aware, but these motors also cost like less than $3 a piece. So I'll just chance it. As long as I can get the robot into the arena, then I should get some good hits. I swapped out the base plate for one made from the 64D TPU, which is a really neat semi-flex TPU, and then I headed up the coast towards Newcastle for the first ever Antweight event held by Hunter Combat Robotics at the Windale Community Hub, which is a really nice new library with a makerspace attached. Super cool. So, how did Vortex go? Well, here's a compilation.
He just also likes making life difficult for himself. Yes!
Yep, it sucked, but it was also awesome. Let me explain. The weapon did hit hard on the few rare occasions I could control it, but it was just way too heavy and it threw out the robot's center of mass. You can see me test driving it before attaching the weapon. It drives amazingly, but as soon as I attached that heavy disc to the back of the robot all the way out on that arm, it just oversteered like crazy. It threw off the center of mass completely. I was also plagued by this really crazy vibration which happened in some of the fights, making the entire machine completely undrivable. I think it's because the weapon disc was quite a loose fit around the motor can, and may have been running slightly eccentric. I'm not really sure. I've never really seen something that bad, like much vibration, and it's definitely balanced in CAD. I double checked. But the robot never died, not once, and that's because the PEBA frame performed incredibly well. This was the 95A PEBA from Tech, and you can see in these hits just how much energy was going into the frame. It definitely copped a beating, but structural integrity was preserved. The robot kept on driving, which is exactly what you need. And for a comparison, this is what the robot looked like at the start of the event, and this is what it looked like after driving into vertical spinners for 6 minutes straight. Most of the 64D TPU forks are gone, and a small area of the PEBA wedge has begun to delaminate, but that was only after a massive number of repeat hits. So I can safely say that PEBA makes excellent combat robot armor. Tully, you're really not making this easy. I would say it's a little stiffer than its equivalent 95A TPU, and it seems to delaminate a little bit more, but it's far lighter, it's less dense, and it's a lot more bouncy, which seems to help it spring back into shape on the really big impacts, all the while soaking up that energy, which is really important to make sure the delicate electronics inside survive. But that wasn't the only experiment in this robot. How did the wheels go? Well, while being thrown around the arena, I actually asked Jesse, the builder of Ascent, to nail the wheels directly at full speed, and the results were really quite interesting. They do have serious damage, but they still function. The gear motors are totally fine. What seems to happen is that the large impacts rip into the foam layer, the foam TPU, and they tear at the layer interface, which isolates the damage to the outer edges of the wheel, which rips those bits off cleanly instead of the whole foam wheel being damaged or torn up at once. So with each hit, they just got thinner and thinner as the fight went on, and the hubs stayed firmly attached to the wheels, which is an achievement for me. And they had great traction as well on the arena floor. This robot kept driving no matter what. Now, yes, I know, exposed wheels are stupid, and it's better to have them armored so they don't get hit at all. But look, if you're going to have them exposed, I'm going to count this as a win. It's incredibly viable, and I didn't even need to use any of my spares. As a data gathering exercise, this little robot was incredibly informative, and I hope these findings help you with your project builds, combat robots or otherwise. But as a combat robot that's actually competitive, Vortex left a lot to be desired, and it's way too cool of a combat robot name to never revisit again. So I'm going to have another crack at it. I still want to give a belt-driven weapon system at this scale a proper go, and the PCB frame components have now arrived, so I'll be giving this machine another shake at a future event. And don't worry, I haven't forgotten, I've also got a combat robot design based on your suggestions from the poll I did last year to make, and it's going to be unhinged, to say the least. A big thanks to Tech for sponsoring this video here on Maker's Muse, and for providing the materials for this build, so be sure to check them out and their range of premium filaments and resins, and the link in the description below. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.